I grew up watching Father Knows Best as reruns, a distant picture of the stay-at-home mother who appeared to cook a 5-course meal while wearing her heels and pearls. Every hair was in place and lipstick freshly applied as she welcomed her handsome, loving, and hardworking husband home with a kiss and, "How was your day, dear?" The children were always well-behaved, loving to one another, and respectful to their parents. I, however, was growing up in the Brady Bunch era, an age of blended families and single mothers, but still mothers who seemed to have perfectly coiffed hairstyles, colorful polyester pantsuits, and someone else to clean their house. It seemed such a stark contrast to the visions from days gone by. With my own family firmly intact and resembling the more black and white versions of family, I had no doubt that when the time came, I too would don my proverbial apron and assume my place in the monochrome world of motherhood. I would soon learn, though, that I was destined for the more technicolor version. Regardless of our circumstances that lead us into motherhood, it is indisputably the most wonderful and difficult journey on which we embark. I began my journey barely in my 20s with a beautiful little girl and no husband. So for most of her first 7 years, it was just the two of us. Yes, I was a single mother. It was never really clear what job Mrs. Brady had before she met Mr. Brady, but it was clear that I was on my own and would need to provide for this child. So I decided to dive headlong into my education and forge a career. I worked, sometimes 2 jobs, and went to school at night. I was going to class in my uniform, running to work the lunch shift, waiting tables, then back to class reeking of lunch special number 1, and back again to wait tables for the dinner shift. This wasn't quite the apron I had envisioned wearing as a child. As a mother, though, I tried hard to do my best. I wasn't the homeroom mother, but I made a killer batch of cupcakes. I couldn't buy her fancy clothes, but I could rock the paper mache and shoebox diorama. We did her homework, then I'd start on mine. Sometimes I slept a couple of hours before getting her up for school. We didn't have much money, but we made it thanks to help from my own parents. But I always felt like something was missing, and all the while I kept believing that Mr. So-and-so would ride in and make us a real family. It wasn't long after I began my new career in life as a divorced mother, single yet again, to a sweet little boy that Mr. Brady walked into my life. Sure, he had a couple of kids of his own, but he had a great job, a great house, and a great minivan. It was time to begin being a real family, but I quickly realized that all those Brady Bunch episodes sure made blending a family seem easy, so much easier than what I found it to be. First off, I didn't have a maid. The cooking, the cleaning, the laundering, the budgeting, the refereeing, the taxing, the everything fell to me alone. 5 children to raise is a lot for anyone, but to more than double your household overnight was overwhelming. Trying to establish a common set of expectations that everyone could abide by proved to be impossible. Our values and ideas about what was important were so different that blending our families was more like cramming a square peg into a tiny round hole, and using a hammer to do it, but I was committed to see it through. Over the next 10 years, I was not only mother to my own biological children, but stepmother and ultimately adoptive mother to his children. I wanted our kids to feel the unity of family. I wanted my husband and me to be a team, to be that united front that would establish us as a single family. I wanted that feeling of security that came from knowing that I was a part of something bigger than myself. I guess I expected some kind of magical peace and harmony to come with this blending of families. I envisioned it would be like on the Brady Bunch when the kids were making fun of each other or forgetting to share, and Mr. Brady always had some cheesy speech that would make them tilt and nod their heads and otherwise set the world to spinning again. But my Mr. Brady just grabbed a beer, scratched his butt, and yelled, "Suck it up and take it outside." Not exactly what I had envisioned for my life. I wish I could say that we all finally came to that melodramatic epiphany where everyone realizes the love they have for each other and all is well, but I can't. There was so much jealousy, fighting, tattling, screaming, and rebellion that I was sure it must be a dream sequence shaped as a nightmare. I thought surely I'd awaken soon to them all crowded around my bed with concerned faces. I would tell them how awful the dream was. We'd share a moment of relieved laughter, and then we would all hug. But that didn't happen. Our real family struggled to survive and began to look more like an episode of Family Guy or some other distorted cartoon version of the dysfunctional family. I was becoming disillusioned and unsure of where things were headed. But as a mother to these children, I couldn't give up. I couldn't leave them behind. I couldn't be a failure. And I guess somewhere I still believed in those old reruns. But all shows eventually come to an end. Ours had run its course and was finally canceled. I was devastated. Not only was the marriage over, but I feared that I would lose my children as well. Time heals all wounds, and sometimes the episodes are re-aired. Or, like the Brady Bunch, the whole cast is reunited for a wedding or some other special event. That's kind of what has happened for me. I didn't lose my children. Some are closer to me than others. But I have learned that that happens even in real families. I see some of them more often than others, but there are always times when we come together and can remember the funny episodes, the touching episodes, or the holiday specials. Then we can go our separate ways with promises to call soon. I finally learned that my life could be full and meaningful without a Mr. Anybody, simply enjoying the beautiful gifts that these children had been to me. And I discovered something else. Motherhood is full of contradictions. One minute you're beloved, next hated. One minute you're saying yes, the next no. One minute you're holding on tightly, the next minute you're letting them go. It really doesn't matter if your children are born from your belly or born from your heart. They're your children. Motherhood doesn't follow a script. Motherhood isn't black and white. It isn't perfect and orderly, and it isn't predictable. Motherhood is full of color. It is vibrant and blinding. It makes you stand in awe and amazement. It is always changing. It is painful, and it is rewarding, all within the same blink of the eye. Most of all is hard work. And regardless of how the family is made up, motherhood is real. It is not a sitcom.